o'clock, so we'll make a start, even though people are possibly just joining us. So welcome to the session this morning. Thanks for joining us so early in the morning. Just before we start, I'll just read through the protocols, just in case anybody's having trouble seeing the screen. So please turn off your microphone if you're not speaking, and that helps prevent any background noise. Please be as present in the learning space as you can. And in this session, we want to encourage as much active participation as possible. So use the chat pane either to make a comment or ask a question for others in the session to see. And I'm presenting this morning, so Mandy will keep an eye on the chat pane. And if you do have resource links to share, please post those in the chat as well. You can also use the chat pane to communicate any technical issues. And we've got Nia here this morning for Speakeasy, who's here for technical support. So you can contact Nia if you're having problems. If you can't see the screen or anything, sometimes just popping out and popping back in again just sorts it out. If you lose connection, please don't panic and just come back in following the joining instructions that you originally used. If you'd like to tweet about your experience this morning, please use the hashtag SLF online and just enjoy the session this morning. So we're going to be talking to you this morning about supporting the education workforce through COVID. And I'll just hand over to Mandy, who's co-presenting this morning, to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming so early in the morning. My name is Mandy Toogood. I'm working with the Professional Learning and Leadership team in Education Scotland, and alongside Louise, I've been supporting the work that's been funded through the Scottish Government to support the workforce during the pandemic, and I've also been leading on a lot of the emerging coaching strategic work around coaching in education in Scotland as well. So I look forward to talking to you more about that in a moment.
And I'm Louise Sanders, and I'm a lead specialist in the PLL team as well. And I'm coordinating the education workforce support that we'll speak to you in a minute about. And I also work on the middle leadership programs. So if you've been involved in those, you might have seen me there too. And again, if you want to tweet, that's our Twitter handles, and it's the hashtag SLF online. So the objectives this morning are just for you to learn a little bit about how we supported the workforce over the past 18 months nationally, and also to hear about what's coming this academic year, probably more importantly. We'll talk to you about what's happened over the last 18 months and a little bit about the lessons we've learned and how we're moving forward. And also, what we'd really like this morning is to provide an opportunity for you to reflect on any support that you've given or received from others, and just to be able to have an opportunity to share your story. We haven't got long this morning, but hopefully we'll be able to hear some of your voices as well.
Right, it's over to me. So welcome again from me. We're going to have a quick connector here this morning. I know it's early in the morning and it's partly to just get our kind of brains going, but as Louise said, it's a challenge on these sessions to make them interactive, but we're going to try as much as we can to share our work, but also give you an opportunity to perhaps share a little bit of yours as well, and just to kind of think about, you know, where you are in terms of supporting the mental health and well-being of the workforce, and that's just really useful for us to know. So just a quick connector here for now. If you could write your name and where you're from in the chat pane. Just think about who's helped you the most in the past 10 months. Maybe think about how they've helped you. Don't name names, but we're just interested to get a feeling this morning from who's on the call as to where you're at with that. And if you can write, just before you write something, if you're happy to kind of speak about it, obviously there's quite a few people on the call, but it would be nice to hear from a few of you, and we can then just ask you to contribute if you're happy to do that. But just to remind you, it's being recorded, but don't let that put you off. So if you could just write your name then, and who's helped you the most, and what that's been about, something about the flavour of that help and that support, that'd be great. We'll give you a couple of minutes to do that.
Will I stop sharing the screen, Mandy?
Yeah. Great. So I'm just having a read through there. Yeah, lots of family, friends, a few dogs in there helping out. I think that's been a bit of a that's been a theme throughout the pandemic. The dogs, I've had a bit of that as well, even though I don't have my dog, I borrow other people's dogs. Lots of family, few people there saying SLT, few people saying about HR and things around work, which have helped them as well, which is the bit that we're kind of getting into a bit this morning as well. I've got one person here who says they're happy to speak about the help that they've got and the support that they've had, and that's Nazim. Nazim, do you want to just maybe put your camera on and come in and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no bother, no bother.
Nice.
Hi there.
Great.
Hi there. Hi. Yeah, it's just been very supportive, very friendly. I've recently started a position in January with Angus Education Psychology Service, and the team have been very supportive. My manager's been very supportive, and it's just been all in all a very positive experience working there. And I think naturally, psych services has got an approach across Scotland where it focuses on the people, the young people and the colleagues and the school staff that we work with. That's why naturally we're very helpful, I would say.
Great. That's great to hear. And I think that probably echoes a lot of what's been happening with other people as well, and hopefully echoes a little bit of the support we've been giving as well. So thanks for sharing that. It's nice to kind of see you and have a bit of human contact this morning. Thanks
No
for
bother.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think should we move on, Louise? Can you put the slides back on?
Slides aren't moving on. Slide doesn't want to move on. There. Okay, so as I said in the objectives, we're just going to talk a little bit about the national support that's been available over the last 18 months. So Scottish Government, Education Scotland and the General Teaching Council work together to provide Scottish Government funded support for the workforce during COVID. So as you can imagine, this was quite a sort of reactionary piece of work as COVID unfolded and we were trying to get things in place. So the first piece of work really was around providing one-to-one coaching. And for that, we used an organisation called Know You More. And the one-to-one coaching initially was aimed at school leaders, so aimed at head teachers. And then it was opened out to teachers in a pastoral role, teachers working in child protection, teachers new to role, and also teachers in their first 4 years. So these teachers were part of the Stepping Stones programme that I'll talk to you about. And then later on during the session, the one-to-one coaching was also opened out to CLD managers and to ELC managers as well. So Mandy will talk to you a little bit more about the impact of that coaching, but that certainly was very positive and very well received in such a difficult time. And then the second part of the offer was support for mental health and well-being. And this was provided with Place to Be and also Bernardo's. And Place to Be worked on some Place to Think sessions with different parts of the workforce. And Bernardo's co-created these sort of safe spaces for people to think and to process and to work in. And this was organised by Scottish Government, and then we worked closely with Place to Be and Bernardo's as the year progressed. And I also mentioned the Stepping Stones programme. This was a programme that we started specifically for teachers in their first 4 years post probation. And this was something that had been in the pipeline, but as with a lot of this work, actually COVID made things happen a lot faster, because we realised that actually this group of teachers really did need that support. So the Stepping Stones programme was put in place just not long after the beginning of the pandemic, and teachers were able to sign up on a sort of invitational basis. So there was workshops and different sessions for them to take part in. Then we worked with SAMI, the Scottish Association for Minority Ethnic Educators, on their programme for BAME educators, and they offered some mentoring there. And there was also a national professional learning offer around coaching. So all in all, this was the package of support that came in place into place due to COVID.
Okay, I'm just going to pick up on a quick question that's come in there. Mr. Hurley asked, is it reactive rather than reactionary? And I would say, if my understanding of the difference between those two is right, I think it's really reactive. Reactionary, I think, would imply that we're not wanting to use this as a kind of to support the change and all the things that we've learned through this time as well. And I think it's been really important through this programme, and at this point as well, as we're going into continuing another year. So it's a good question at this point, for us to kind of communicate to you that actually what we're thinking about is things that can kind of really help and change and support long term and be sustainable. Does that answer the question okay? Just put thumbs up or something, or that'd be great. Okay, thanks for that. We maybe said reactionary instead of reactive, but absolutely, it's just reactive. About that. You know, things kind of came at us all at a very kind of quick pace, and the Scottish Government put a very kind of good amount of support into this, and we were able to then put some things into place that could really help, and we've learned a lot from that. And we've also learning a lot from how we can continue to support the workforce now and beyond the pandemic. So that's a great question. Thanks for that.
Yeah, really good question.
Sorry, coming in. Sorry, did I hear somebody coming in there? That's okay.
I was just going to add that, as I mentioned with the Stepping Stones programme, this was already sort of work in progress, as was the one-to-one coaching and also the sort of mental health support. But actually, the process was really sort of it really sped up because of the pandemic. So it was work that we knew needed to happen, but it obviously took on a slightly different slant. But thanks for that question.
Yeah, great question. Good timing. Okay, I'm going to go on and just tell you a little bit about what's coming up, some similar themes and some similar programmes from last year, but with some slightly different approaches as well that we're going to put into place. Just again, picking up on that point from what we've learned this year, and wanting to make sure that the support that we put in this year is sustainable as much as possible, gives the support that people need right now, but we have our eye on the future as well, and also bring our partners and stakeholders, like the people on this call, along with us, which is why this conversation is quite helpful as well. So the first part of the package, as Louise said, is a kind of package of support around supporting health and well-being of the workforce, and this is really we've designed this around providing some supervision spaces for educators, practitioners across the system. And I think it's also important to kind of say at this point that we're looking at the whole education system here. We're looking at schools. It's offered to our community learning and development partners and our early learning and childcare partners and stakeholders as well. So over the past year, those supervision spaces have been running. Last year, they were very much a kind of combination of supporting the mental health and well-being of the participants that came along to the groups, but also they were about looking at and learning about supporting the mental health and well-being of children and young people. And this year, we've separated that out a little bit. We recognised, and the feedback that we got from people early on was that the first port of call was that it was really important to be supporting the workforce, because if our practitioners, our teachers, our CLD people are not in a good place themselves and are not getting the support themselves, then it's very difficult for them to then support the children and young people, families, communities that they're working with. So in recognition of that, we've been a little bit more specific about the groups for this year. So there will be supervision spaces coming up, and we'll promote this throughout all of our kind of different channels, so you'll be able to look out for these over the next month or so. So we're going to have some supervision spaces which are particularly looking at taking care of yourself, and we're going to have some spaces that are taking care of the staff you lead. So there's a recognition there that over the past year that's been a particular strain and difficulty for a lot of people actually understanding and learning new ways of supporting the staff they lead in the situation that we've all been kind of thrown into. So we thought it was quite important to kind of separate those two things out. And then alongside that, we have an emerging and ever-growing national resource for taking care of children and young people, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on and send you some links. So what we're going to do is try and create a much more kind of dynamic kind of hub where all of these things live, and enable practitioners and people like yourselves to actually link into those resources and have them to kind of support the work that you're doing with children and young people and families and communities, you know, right across the spectrum. Those supervision spaces, just to let you know, they're really a safe space, an environment where you can kind of come together in groups and have time. There's kind of, they provide a kind of emotional containment, a kind of safe space where you can discuss problems and issues. You can pause and reflect on what's happening. You can work with people that are experts in facilitating these groups to kind of help connect with other people, to learn from other people, and to just get that time and space to reflect yourself. A lot of the coaching work I'll talk to you about in a minute is about your kind of individual support, but this is this gives you an opportunity to be a little bit more focused on the mental health and well-being aspect of things, and actually have that time for yourself. So if you are interested in it, or you think there are staff that you're working with that would be interested in it, then I would really encourage you to join those groups, and they'll be happening over the next month or so. Okay. Yeah, somebody's just said in the chat pane, it's good to see that we're offering this supervision. It's a model that's come very much from the kind of health sector and social work sector. They've had support and supervision in place for the workforce for a long time. It's something that's never really come into education in that way. So it's been an interesting development. So I'm going to go on now and talk about the one-to-one coaching, as Louise mentioned earlier. This is going to be a very similar programme to last year. We started this off by offering a one-to-one coaching through Know You More, who work with very qualified, very experienced coaches to provide that one-to-one support, usually about 3 sessions. Some people have had some extension on that. And it started off by offering it to head teachers, because at the beginning of the pandemic, that was, you know, the big need was to kind of support the people at the top that were supporting everybody else in the school system. But that's grown as the years progressed. We've been able to offer one-to-one coaching to our to teachers that are new to role, to teachers and leaders in schools who are responsible for pastoral care and child protection in particular, because that was quite a big strain through the pandemic. And then we managed to open it out to CLD, community learning and development managers, and then also to early learning and childcare managers. And both of those sectors have taken up that offer really, really strongly as well. And we've had a huge amount of feedback about the coaching and how successful it's been in the system, and how much support people have got from it. You know, some people have been kind of describing how they couldn't have got through the pandemic without it. So it has been a really kind of valuable support. So again, it's going to be coming back into the system in the next month or so. We don't know who's going to be delivering it yet, whether it will be the same people or not. We're going through a procurement process at the moment, but that will be being promoted very soon, and again encourage you to sort of plug into that. It's not a hugely time-consuming thing. 3 sessions can make a real difference with a professional coach. So just, you can see on the slide there, it's been a transformational experience, which saved me professionally during the most difficult time in my career. And we've heard that over and over again from people. It's been very beneficial to protected time to think deeply about specific things in your current practice. again, a good kind of link to that thinking space, and really, you know, giving some time to that. We've got a coaching workshop later on at SLF, so come along to that if you want to learn more about that. And also, this opportunity has arrived at the right time and helped me to evaluate and focus. So a really good kind of example of how that's helped with the sort of broader role of a head teacher. So we're looking at developing that and opening that out to as many groups as we can. Okay, the next slide.
Okay, and I also mentioned that we'd been working with SAMI, and that's going to continue this session. And SAMI, in their research, have found, and we've heard it on the news as well, that a lot of BAME people have been adversely affected by COVID. So it's even more important this year that that support's in place. So SAMI, they provide a leadership program, and part of that is the coaching and mentoring support for BAME colleagues. Also, we're working with SAMI really more widely on the whole package, just to ensure that we're being culturally responsive. So one of the lessons we learned last year, working with all the different providers, was some of the most rich conversations that were had throughout the whole work was when providers got together and learned from each other. So we're hoping to continue and build on that this year. And I mentioned the Stepping Stones programme. So this was a programme of online support, and this is a joint programme run by Education Scotland and the General Teaching Council. And this is specifically for post-probation teachers, so in their first 4 years post-probation. And they have a designated programme area. There are live and recorded workshops, and these workshops are based on areas that participants have identified that they're interested in. There's more informal coffee catch-ups, and there's also professional learning activities on the PLL website. One of the things that had the most impact on our Stepping Stones participants was the support through coaching conversations, and this was arranged through some of our middle leaders leading change participants joining the coaching organisation, joining Know You More and learning about coaching, and offering those spaces for our Stepping Stones participants to have those conversations. And we're building on that this year and having more coaching conversations with our participants across all of our programs. And also there were reflection into action sessions, so thinking about the learning on the program, but then actually discussing and reflecting on the so what. So how is this actually impacting on what we're doing in class? And so this is all available to teachers as from now. This program has already started. Andy?
Yeah, this slide here is has been developed by some colleagues in Education Scotland, because what we're trying to do is, as we said earlier, link all the work that we're doing through these funded programmes into a kind of more national support for wellbeing. And they're developing what they're calling a cycle of wellbeing, which is looking at staff wellbeing of all staff, wellbeing, supporting whole school approaches, professional learning to support wellbeing in children and young people, supporting learning and teaching, and evaluating progress in wellbeing. So all of those areas are being really kind of looked at, and there's a whole package of support that and resources that will come with that. And part of what we're going to do this year is try and bring all the resources and all the ideas and all the programs that people are doing together, and to communicate them across the system with a series of workshops, webinars. We're just working on that piece just now, but we wanted to kind of share that because it's an interesting kind of cycle to think about, and it might be something that will kind of resonate with you in your context as well. And we're working quite closely with our colleagues to make sure that what we're doing is going to be part of that whole cycle.
So we have lots of links here, and at the end of the session today, we'll pop them in the chat pane.
Already, Louise. Yeah.
Oh, you've done it. Brilliant. Yeah. So there's the wellbeing planning tool. So that's specifically for staff to manage health and wellbeing in school. The support for the education workforce, so everything we've been speaking about this morning, if you go onto the National Improvement Hub, there's the signpost there. As Mandy said, we're still in the procurement process for some of the work, so the one-to-one coaching and the health and wellbeing spaces, but that will be forthcoming in the next month or so. The whole of school approach to mental health and wellbeing, the children and young people's mental health and wellbeing, that's a knowledge and skills framework, and the new professional learning resource for children and young people's mental health. Also, there's some other sort of helpful learning and teaching resources if you're interested, as well as a tool to help evaluate learner wellbeing. We would ask you at the end of the session just to fill in one question. We'll just talk to you a little bit more about that when we're finished, and there's an opportunity as well for you to sign up for updates on workforce support. So we're just sort of gradually gathering people's emails if they're interested in being emailed when anything new is out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to jump in quickly there. Just there's one question that I wanted to kind of just have a look at. I think it's from Nazim again. It was around whether educational psychologists would be able to take up the offer of one-to-one coaching. And I think the answer to that is it's a great question, and one that we can consider it, as we're going into this. Well, very shortly we'll be planning who the kind of first cohorts of people will be, so we'll definitely keep that one in mind. So it's not a question that's been asked before, and it's not a group that we've offered it to before, but we can have a look at that. So thanks for that question. David also put in the chat pane the support for the workforce National Improvement Hub link, and so has said something there about how that's being reviewed. That will have all of these offers up there. That's the best way to find out about this offer, and to kind of find links to sort of booking into opportunities as they come about over the next month or two. So keep your eye on that, but that is being reviewed at the moment. Thanks, David, for that. Okay, sorry, Louise, I just wanted to...
No, that's all right. I've also popped in a couple of links here. I don't know if any of you managed to attend our Gavin Oates sessions back at the beginning of this month, and they were really around communicating that there is support out there for you, and it's just an hour for you to think about yourself. And I'm not going to sort of give any spoilers, but there are still places left for this session, and this is open to the whole education workforce. So wherever you work, you're more than welcome to sign up for this. So we do have a few spaces left, both for the 29th of September and the 30th, if you're interested. So just before we finished, as we said at the beginning, we want this to be as sort of interactive as possible. So we've talked a little bit about what's on offer nationally and what's coming in the next month or so. And as we heard a little bit at the beginning, you know, that there are, of course, there's lots of good work going on out in local authorities and in different settings and different schools. So it would be lovely if we've just got sort of 10 minutes or so at the end, if you could share with each other and share with us what you're thinking about what you've heard this morning, but also share your stories. So we'll just give you a few minutes. I'll come off the slides as well. And so if you could either just type your comments in the chat pane or pop your hand up to speak, it'd be great to hear from you and just have a bit more of a conversation just for the last 10 minutes.
It'd be great if you could put your cameras on if you're comfortable with that as well. It's nice to see people. It's nice to see Nazim. So any more want to come and join? That'd be great. Thank you. Lovely. Early in the morning. I'm very impressed that some of you have actually got into a work space at this time in the morning. Louise and I are part of that group of people that don't actually leave our offices at home at the moment, and just absolutely in awe of you lot having to actually turn up to offices at the moment, and schools and centres. I think the excuse that we use is that we would be super spreaders because we'd be jumping from one to the other, but we do have it easy, I think, in comparison to a lot of people. So kind of seeing people already in offices at this time of the morning and thinking about the pressure that must be putting on you, even to just come in on this early, really, really appreciate it. So does anybody have anything that they want to share, or any questions you want to ask? You can either put your hand up or put it in the chat pane. There's no pressure, but it would be nice to, just any reflections on what you've heard so far this morning. Very conscious it was a presentation. Gail, great. Welcome.
Hi, I feel the pressure of the too much silence, so I thought I'll jump in. So much to say. I'm an ex-teacher, and I did the first few months of pandemic in school, and then I got the job working at Education Scotland now, and so I've been remote working since September, so I'm still in home office. And I'm just going to say, I think this is a great, it's been a really great talk, because it's easy to forget about yourself when you're constantly, especially in teaching, but any job, when you're constantly having to think about everyone else. So I think this has been really interesting, and really saying, like I say, I've been very lucky. Here we've got like a cracking HR department, and they offered free mindfulness sessions on a weekly basis and free yoga and all this kind of stuff, and that really did help. So I'm a big fan of the mindful approach. So that would be my advice to anyone seeking out some inner peace. Or
Thanks,
just a quiet.
No, that's great. It's great to hear, and I think kind of resonates with a lot of what we've been hearing over the last year. And I think, again, going back to that first question that was asked, we've been reacting, but we've been developing some really interesting new ways of working and thinking and supporting our colleagues. And I remember in the olden days, if you'd kind of said, let's have a yoga session at the beginning of the day to get us all going, you think you were absolutely barking mad. But now it's, well, yeah, we actually really need that, and it's really helpful, and it's showing that it's having a really real impact on our work, and also how we can work with children and young people. So so there's lots of really great, interesting new things coming from this as well. I'm really excited about all the coaching work. So if you've got time later on, you want to come along to that workshop, we'll be getting into that a little bit more, because that's a great space as well for people to have that one-to-one support. Thanks, Gail. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Anything you want to throw in before you go back to the tsunami, I think, as somebody called it yesterday? Okay, we've got Razpeki. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
No, that's okay. Glo doesn't use my first name for some reason.
Okay.
I can't work out how to change it. Yeah, I think it's really sort of valuable approaches that you're highlighting. I think exactly the kinds of connection and problem solving through coaching and supervision that's really useful. I wondered as well about, and maybe I missed this, I have to apologise, I was a wee bit late and had you playing while I was getting myself ready, so I'm working from home at the moment, so apologies if you covered this already. So I noticed that the coaching and supervision is people kind of, people, I guess, seeking out that kind of support for those that need it. You did mention that kind of cycle of well-being, which was more of a whole school sort of approach. And I just wondered what your thoughts were around, and if there was anything available already. I noticed that you mentioned the whole school approach to mental health framework in Scotland, which I haven't seen before, about the kind of whole school side of things, and about that kind of more sort of systemic approach to staff well-being. We talk about kids well-being a lot, and we have got a lot of good sort of systemic ways of approaching that and building well-being. And I just wondered if there's anything you'd kind of highlight around systemic approaches to staff well-being in schools.
I think if you have a look at those links, we've been working with our colleague Lorna Aitken in Education Scotland, and she's developing that as we speak, actually. So so have a look at those links, and there's sort of evaluation tools to see where you are with that sort of whole school approach and so on, so that there is a lot of work that's just recently been done on that. So absolutely. And if you're wanting more of a conversation around that, I'll pop Lorna's email in the chat pane, because she's our person at Education Scotland who you know, that's her thing. So yeah, so I'll do that just now. And just while I'm talking about the chat pane, I noticed somebody wanted the links for Gavin Oates, and I've popped those in, and I've also popped in as well just a little form if you're wanting us to keep in touch with you. So anything like that, pop into the form, and you know, then we've got your email and stuff, so we can keep in touch with you.
I suppose the other thing that I would add to that, with my kind of coaching hat on, is that we're also, and I haven't really mentioned this, as part of last year's programme, we put on some national professional learning offers around coaching, and I think there was probably around 110 people that were put through quite an intensive coaching practice professional learning programme, which is great. We've got this really kind of building this capacity in the system, but it's in a system in a kind of national basis and not necessarily in a local sense. And what we're really interested in doing is supporting people more locally, more in more a kind of school setting or a CLD setting, to actually be able to kind of create their own coaching cultures. So we're doing some work at the moment around planning the next phase of that support to that professional learning, which might help people who are in a situation like the one that you're in to actually start developing people's skills in the schools as well, and to kind of be able to make a more kind of sustainable approach to maybe using a coaching approach in a school, for example. And that's work that we're talking to Lorna about as well. But I'm sure she'd be really keen to talk to you about that, and anybody else. Really keen to know what the best way of doing this is, because we can put on national programmes, but whether or not that's really kind of hitting the mark in terms of supporting you in your centres as well is something that's difficult for us sometimes to see. So that's a great question.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. I think there's that. I think there's a sort of growing kind of awareness and drive towards increased sort of supervision and coaching in schools and giving staff that reflective space. So kind of, yeah, sort of having ways to sort of develop that kind of culture and that framework would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that question. That's good.
There's a comment there in the chat from Mrs. Clubb. It's positive that we're having the conversation about wellbeing as staff, but still a concern around the grassroots effect. So I'm not sure we're seeing the benefits yet. So many teaching staff are already on their knees. We need to keep our eyes on those around us and know when to put on the kettle and make space to support others. That's what we're hearing all the time now from all across the system. Totally. So that's very reflective on what, you know, a lot of people are saying.
And something that's really difficult to answer, but I think the best way of getting to a solution, you know, in terms of the national support we can have, is to have these kinds of conversations. So again, if you've got ideas or thoughts or anything you want to share, or anything that might help guide us through the next year in terms of the support we're giving, we're always up for a challenge and the difficult questions, because that's so important. And like Louise said, we're hearing, especially at the moment, it's been quite interesting. You know, people have been incredibly resilient and really, you know, reactive, and really, you know, putting themselves into the, you know, the space of really kind of support the learners that they're working with. But just now, people just seem to be particularly exhausted and are finding things really difficult and uncertain. So it's a really crucial time to be supporting people just now.
Yeah. And thanks for your question, Helen, about Gavin Oates sessions. Unfortunately, they're not recorded. So Gavin's, this will be the third and fourth session. So we don't record these. That's really unfortunate. But hopefully, if they are well attended and well received, you know, that's not to say we can't put on more, because they're certainly very thought-provoking sessions. So any final questions before we finish? And as I say, I've popped the link to the say questionnaire. It's just got one question on it, but if you want to keep in touch with us, that would be great if you could fill that out.
That's yeah, Mrs. Green's put a good point in there. It's so important to check in on our leadership teams and early career teachers too. I think the early career teachers, what I've learned, because I've been doing some kind of coaching and reflection work with the Stepping Stones programme this year, is how the timing of them coming in as early career teachers during a pandemic has been particularly challenging for that group. I think they've lost all the support they had while they were through their probationary year, and suddenly coming into that is an incredible challenge that they've all had to face. So it's good, you know, it's been good to be able to support that group. And that whole thing about feeling the pressure but not sharing it. Again, what we're trying to do is create opportunities for that kind of networking element of what we're doing as well, and to kind of link practitioners and teachers from across different parts of the sector and different areas. And what's been really nice about the one-to-one coaching, I think, that the Stepping Stones participants have had, is that they've been being coached by middle leaders in the main, and so they've been plugging in with middle leaders from a school that might be at a completely different end of the country, and just been kind of sharing their challenges and getting that kind of support and understanding that they're not feeling like they're on their own as well. I think that Stepping Stones programme, that part of it has been particularly important.
I'll just pop the link back in for the.
I think it'd be
Sorry,
good
I
just
think
to kind of thank people, Louise, at this point, because in a
Yeah.
couple of minutes we will get cut
We'll
off.
just get
There's
cut
no,
off
There's no
in
chat time
mid-sentence.
afterwards, unfortunately. So, I mean, for me anyway, I'm sure Louise will do the same, but thank you for coming along this morning. It's been a real pleasure, and so important for us to have these opportunities to share what we're doing and what we're trying to do, but also to work with you to make it better and to make sure it's really kind of hitting the mark where it's needed. So, you know, take Louise and I's email addresses if you've got any thoughts, ideas, you want to be involved in shaping any of this, let us know, because we're very, very keen to work with people as much as possible. So thank you very much. It's been great to meet you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for coming along so early in the morning. That's just amazing to see so many of you. Have a good day.
Yeah.